Meantime, UFO sightings in New York have nearly doubled since the pandemic began, and we are getting new video from the Navy showing pyramid-shaped objects flying in the sky. Brian Yennis is live for us in Brooklyn, New York. Brian, good morning.
Trace, good morning. This extraordinary video and images of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, were leaked to investigative reporter Jeremy Corbell and investigative reporter George Knapp. This night vision video purportedly shows 3 pyramid-shaped UFOs flying over the USS Russell off the coast of California in July of 2019. At one point, these UFOs reportedly hovered just 700 feet above the tail of the Navy destroyer, making, quote, extraordinary maneuvers. Now, Corbell says the unclassified video is part of a classified government report intended to educate officials about unidentified crafts flying over restricted airspace. These cell phone photos taken by a FA-18 pilot in March of 2019 show 3 different unidentified aircrafts off the coast of Oceania, including 2 UFOs dubbed the Metallic Blimp and another called the Sphere. A Department of Defense spokesperson said, quote, "I can confirm that the referenced photos and videos were taken by Navy personnel. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force has included these incidents in their ongoing examinations." However, the Pentagon was unwilling to confirm these 3 photos, which Corbell says came from the USS Omaha, showing a UFO diving into the ocean and disappearing.
That is an extraordinary piece of technology. Whoever is operating these technologies are far more advanced than anything we have in the U.S. arsenal, and that should be a warning sign. We need to find out the intent of the operators of these vehicles.
Extraterrestrial or not, a bombshell UFO report is expected in June from the U.S. government. Trace.
Look forward to that. Brian Yennis live for us in New York. Brian, thank you.
The second question, though, the one that interests UFO people, and it's a completely separate community of people. The UFO community is largely not consisting of scientists, physicists, astronomers, and so on. It's mostly just kind of amateur, curious people that, call themselves, researchers or investigative journalists or whatever.
It's probably time to stop calling people who believe in UFOs crackpots after the recent revelation that there's actually a Pentagon task force looking into them. One astrophysicist who has worked for the Pentagon's UFO program since 2007 told the New York Times that he gave a classified briefing to a Defense Department agency about retrievals from, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. Are we on the brink of full disclosure about visitors from outer space?
I remember as a kid being interested in UFOs, and at that point it was viewed as kind of a crankpot theory. And I think, though, for a long time, the military, as people saw things, they didn't investigate them. One of the things that has changed, and I received classified briefing on this, so I can only give you the top line, is that the military has seen enough things where they're actually now encouraging pilots to report. If there are objects flying over military installations, that could pose a security threat. So we, working with Senator Rubio, we put into law a requirement that the Defense Department make a report to this. And this report, on one level, needs to be declassified and revealed to the American public. So if there's something out there, let's seek it out. It probably is a foreign power, but I think, the past approach that the military had, which was the pilot saw something to kind of say, whatever you do, don't report it, it's going to look bad on your record, to now say, no, if you're seeing things, and if we've now seen there's actual visual recorded evidence, we gotta sort this out.
Well, the Defense Department has confirmed videos taken in 2019 are legitimate images of UFOs taken by Navy personnel.
And take a look. One of the 3 objects was described as a metallic blimp, but it moved like a rocket. Videos of the UFOs were leaked online last year, and a task force is now investigating. U.S. intelligence agencies have been directed to give unclassified reports about UFOs to Congress in June. So this could finally be maybe a floodgate where we talk about what those really are. Because let's get real, a blimp does not move like a rocket.
Yeah. I want to see one, though.
I know!
I want to see one with the naked eye. I want to see it.
So, Senator, what about that? What can you tell us about UFOs?
Well, we have things flying over military installations, over military exercises, and other places, and we don't know what it is. It isn't ours. It isn't anything that's registered with the FAA, and in many cases exhibits attributes of things we've never seen, technology, the kinds of technology we haven't seen before, or at least that's what it seems like.
All we're saying, nobody has to agree that why it's there, but shouldn't we at least be spending some money to study all these phenomenon? Shouldn't we study this stuff? The answer is yes, and that's all this was about, and why the federal government all these years has covered up, put brake pads on everything, stopped it. I think it's very, very bad for our country.
Are you saying that there's some evidence that's still hasn't seen the light of day?
I'm saying most of it hasn't seen the light of day.
The U.S. Navy has finally acknowledged that videos appearing to show UFOs flying through the air are real. They don't call them UFOs. They call them unidentified aerial phenomena. The several videos they're talking about were recorded years ago by fighter pilots. Then in 2017, they were made public by the New York Times.
The Navy says it still doesn't know what the objects are, and officials aren't speculating. A Navy spokesman simply confirming to CNN the objects seen in the various clips are unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. The UFO reports were first investigated by a secret $22 million program, part of the Defense Department budget, that investigated reports of UFOs. The program has since been shut down, but it was run by a military intelligence official who told CNN they found compelling evidence that we, quote, may not be alone. Randy Kay, CNN, New York.
Okay, joining us right now to discuss is Lou Elizondo. He is the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, a Pentagon unit that studies UFOs. Lou, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So part of the evidence apparently is going to show UFOs or some, they're just unidentified objects, breaking the sound barrier without a sonic boom. How is that possible?
Well, I think that's probably the crux of the problem, that we are seeing these, let's call them vehicles, if you will, that are incurring into controlled U.S. airspace, that are displaying performance characteristics that are frankly well beyond anything that we can either replicate or in some cases really even understand. In essence, these things, if you look at quantum physics, there's a lot of modeling right now that suggests that a lot of this performance can be explained if you have a really deep understanding of quantum physics. And by the way, you're absolutely right. There's 5 unique observables that these things are displaying. One is instantaneous acceleration. The second one is hypersonic velocity. The third one is a bit of an oxymoron, but it's low observability. And then the fourth one is transmedium travel, the ability to operate in different environments. And then the last observable is this, if you will, this weird positive lift or anti-gravity, where you have these vehicles with no wings, no control surfaces, no engines, and yet somehow they're able to fly and frankly outperform some of the very best aircraft that we have in our inventory.
Qui c'è veramente qualcosa, senza dubbio. C'è il pilota che ha visto, le cineprese che hanno filmato, c'è la torre di controllo che ha identificato l'oggetto. Ci sono un sacco di cose e c'è un problema. La tecnologia utilizzata da questi congegni sembrerebbe una tecnologia che noi non conosciamo. Perché ovviamente se c'è una soluzione che permette a un congegno, a un oggetto non identificato, di passare da una velocità zero a una velocità straordinaria o di fare evoluzioni di ogni genere, è evidente che questo interesserebbe a tutti, perché cambierebbe anche il rapporto con l'aviazione da caccia, tra le altre cose. Dopotutto, se si trovasse qualcosa, potrebbe aiutare la difesa francese. Quindi siamo sempre nello stesso tipo di logica. Se troviamo qualcosa, può aiutarci a capire il fenomeno e, perché no, a trarne dei vantaggi.
Out of this world lead today, with all the dominating headlines, the coronavirus pandemic, the upcoming election, the new recession. What normally would be front page news has sometimes fallen onto page D15, but this is pretty significant. The Pentagon does not talk about mysterious unidentified flying object or UFO sightings, but soon government findings will be available for public view.
Back to the phones. Jeff.
Thank you. There was a media report that the DOD is kind of not taking seriously some legislation to tell Congress all that it knows about unidentified aircraft, and reports that these aircraft have been around ships and aircraft carriers. And I'm wondering, can you respond? Is the Defense Department taking this seriously?
If you're asking if we're taking our requirements seriously to develop this report and to keep Congress informed, of course we are. But I don't have any details on the specifics of the report itself for you today, Jeff.
UFOs? Any UFOs? Did you ask about that?
Certainly asked about it.
And?
Can't tell you. Sorry.
Okay. All right, I'll take that as a yes. Because if there were none, you'd say there was none, right? You just played your hand. I thought you were a poker player. You just 100% showed your river card.
Feel free to think that.
Explain. Now, the new reports come in the form of those ship log entries that you just talked about, requested by technology website The Drive and a documentary filmmaker, and they show the USS Kidd, a destroyer, the USS Rafael Peralta, the USS Finn, all reported seeing unidentified aerial vehicles at very close range, in some cases brazenly violating restricted airspace around the warships, at one point hovering over a landing pad and making rapid north, south, east to west maneuvers. Now, that's very similar to what fighter pilots saw back in 2004 when
we don't know the origin of these vehicles, nor do we understand the intent of whoever is controlling them. I received the videos, the now famous videos in the Pentagon parking lot from a Defense Department official. I still have the originals in the packaging. In the end, I have to say I was still extraordinarily disappointed with the New York Times. Because they focused on this small ATIP program, and the real story, in my mind at least, should have been, these things are real, they're here, this is happening now.
So at the end of all that sifting and interpreting, what do you think is the most likely hypothesis?
I don't know. You know, when people talk about it, you know, is there life, other life besides what's in the States, in the world? Globe. You know, life is defined in many different ways, and I think it's a bit presumptuous, if not arrogant, for us to believe that there's no other form of life anywhere in the entire universe. What that might, you know, be is, I think, you know, subject to, you know, a lot of different views. But I think some of the phenomena we might be seeing continues to be unexplained, and might in fact be some type of phenomenon that is the result of something that we don't yet understand, and that could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life. But I think the important thing for analysts to do is not to go into this type of challenge either discounting certain types of possibilities or believing in advance that it is likely X, Y, or Z. You really have to approach it with an open mind, but get as much data as possible and get as much expertise as possible brought to bear.
Can you tell us, have unidentified flying objects been seen?
Well, sure. We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon. But frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Some of those have been declassified. When we talk about sightings, we're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that, frankly, engage in actions that are difficult to explain, that movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that, you know, exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom. So, in short, things that we are observing that are difficult to explain. And so, there's actually quite a few of those, and I think that that information is being gathered and will be put out in a way that the American people can see.
Can you tell us where it was seen?
Actually, all over the world. There have been sightings all over the world. I think it'll be healthy for as much of this information to get out there as possible so that the American people can see some of the things that we've been dealing with.
I have a friend who had been in an aircraft who says that there was some event in which an aircraft was paused. I'm not as skeptical as I was a few years ago, to put it mildly. That's about as far as I'd like to go.
Sure.
Which is openness to new things, willingness to examine them, hope that we can be friendly and able to deal with a wide range of behaviors in terms of dealing with our fellow human beings or with other creatures if they exist.
I can tell you it's being taken more seriously now than it ever has been. And look, there's a stigma associated with this, all right? When a Navy pilot would report that they saw something, they were told you need to go see the flight surgeon, so to check out your head, make sure you're not seeing things. So there's a stigma associated with reporting it, even talking to you about it now, right? I mean, people are going to go out and say, look what these people are focused on when the world is falling apart. So there's a stigma associated with it, and that's, I think, needs to go away. We don't have any preconceived notions about what this is or isn't. We just need to know, or we need to start trying to know. I think the first step is to ask the question. If you don't ask the question, you're not going to get or begin to get answers.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
These 3 videos released by the Department of Defense have changed the way many people see what we can't explain.
The moment you mention UFO, immediately what comes to mind are little green men, tinfoil hats. That's not at all what we're dealing with.
In 2004, off the coast of California, an F-18 Super Hornet training exercise was suddenly interrupted by a call over the radio that would come to define Commander David Fravor's career.
There's certain things in your life where you just remember in vivid detail what happened. And that's one of them, because it's honestly the strangest, most obscure thing I've ever seen flying.
Fravor, the commanding officer of the Navy's Strike Fighter Squadron 41, and another F-18 scrambled to check out an unusual radar blip 80 miles off the coast.
So as we're looking around, the backseater in the other airplane comes up and says, "Hey, Skipper, do you see?" And before he says it, I'm like, "Dude, do you see that?" As soon as we look down, we see the whitewater, and then we see this little white tic-tac. It's pointing north-south, and it's just going forward, back, left, right.
It's just bouncing around?
Yeah, like a ping pong ball.
What was its shape? What was its... what did it look like it was made out of?
Like a perfectly smooth white tic-tac. Or for people that need a bigger visualization, a giant propane tank.
Fravor says the F-18s began circling, Fravor at 20,000 feet, and the so-called tic-tac only about 50 feet above the surface of the water.
And I say, "Hey, I'm going to go check this thing out." And the other pilot stays and says, "Hey, I'm going to stay up high." And then it starts coming up at us. We call it 2-circle fight, but it's coming up, I'm coming down. So it literally is aware we're there. There's no doubt, because it mirrored me. So here it is. I cut across, and I get to about half mile of it, so I'm about halfway across the circle. As it gets in front of me, it just goes poof, and it's gone. And it's gone like that fast.
What do you mean, poof, it's gone?
I mean exactly that. Like, it's 1 minute it's there, and the next second, it's like magic trick. So I asked the other airplane, I said, "Hey, do you guys see that?" And they're like, "It's gone. It just disappeared."
When you saw this kind of performance, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
What the hell was that?
Once back on the carrier, Fravor's team told the next crew what had happened, and that crew took off ready to capture something on camera. And this is what they saw. I guess the biggest question is, what do you think it is?
I honestly don't know. I don't think that we have developed that technology. I don't think we developed it on this planet. We still, to this day, have no idea what it was, what we saw, what we chased, what we engaged. But it was pretty spectacular.
A report from that incident eventually made its way to the Pentagon and crossed the desk of Luis Elizondo, the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
In essence, what that program was an investigatory body looking at what we call the U.A.P, probably in the vernacular, it's better known as the UFO phenomenon. The bottom line here is that over the past several decades, we in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community have been noticing things in our airspace that don't have wings, they don't have cockpits, they don't have even an obvious sign of propulsion like an engine, and yet still they're able to defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity.
In 2020, the Pentagon declassified 3 videos, the Tic Tac video and 2 others filmed on the East Coast in January of 2015. Other countries have made similar public disclosures. Also in 2004, the Mexican Air Force confirmed this video was shot by one of their pilots near the coast of Baja California. In 2014, the helicopter from the Chilean Navy locked onto an unidentified object emitting what appeared to be some sort of gas or vapor. Both governments have said they investigated but couldn't determine what the objects were. To those like science writer Sarah Scholes, clipped black and white videos always leave a lot to the imagination.
To me, the most interesting thing about the videos is how little information is in them. All we have are these, 30 seconds or a minute of something totally decontextualized. And so everybody kind of gets to think whatever they want to think about them because we don't actually have enough information to form any kind of conclusion, which is UFO's favorite space to live in, the muddy, fuzzy space.
But will 2021 be the year all of that changes because of COVID-19?
Hidden among the many pages of the COVID-19 bill is this mandate to produce a report on unidentified aerial phenomena. What's different this time is that the military is kind of talking about them very explicitly in terms of threats. It's not like the Pentagon's deal to call things aliens, but that's kind of the angle they're coming from.
If there is a foreign adversary, let's say Russian or China or anybody else, who happens to have this technology and they've had it for decades, and we in the United States have somehow been strategically leapfrogged in our technology, we've got a big problem on our hands.
Officially, the clause attached to December's COVID-19 relief bill, added by the Senate Intelligence Committee, calls for the military and FBI to brief committee members on what they know about UAPs within 180 days of the bill's passing. The kind of top-level briefings Elizondo says he's given before.
The 3 options are, is it our technology? Is it foreign adversarial technology or someone else's technology? Or is it something completely different? We're 99% sure it's not foreign adversarial technology. So that only leaves really one other option. It's someone or something else.
Are these 3 videos the only videos that you know of that the United States government has that shows unidentified aerial phenomena?
No, absolutely not. These are probably some of the least compelling videos. In some cases, we've seen these things 50 feet away from the cockpit.
And when you're talking about something that is 50 feet away, I mean, what could they tell from being 50 feet away?
With all due respect, Gotti, I no longer work for the United States government in that capacity. So I want to be clear that I don't want to speak on behalf of the U.S. government, and I also want to give the government time to do what it needs to do regarding this data.
But in science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
If the UFO field wants to be taken more seriously by scientists, I think they will kind of have to move away from the types of evidence that have historically been held up as adequate, like individual sightings, because the scientists can't really do anything with the story. They need data.
Look, I'm not a UFO guy. My background, I'm a former counterintelligence special agent. I was asked to do a job, which I did. However, it was my understanding and the conclusions that I came to, and by the way, every other person in the program unanimously came to the realization that these things are indeed real. And it's getting increasingly harder to keep the cat in the bag.
Do you ever think that you're going to see something like that again in your lifetime?
I don't know. I look up a lot. I mean, I'm not lying. On a clear night, you just look up and wonder, and I'll wander for the rest of my life. I think everyone does.
Just a few days ago, the Pentagon confirmed that a 2019 video of a UFO sighting is actually real. It was a UFO. The video shows a pyramid-shaped object flying over a U.S. Navy destroyer. This is the very first time the public has seen video from this incident. The UFO footage was leaked to a filmmaker called Jeremy Corbell, who joins us tonight to explain all of this. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on. Tell us where this was shot. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I obtained and released videos and photographic evidence of UFOs swarming our warships. So the green video is night vision. That's from the USS Russell. It wasn't just one pyramid-shaped craft. It was multiple. These were swarms. I also released with my mentor in journalism, George Knapp, also released from the USS Omaha, which looks like thermal imagery. He released 3 photos the day prior to mine. So we're trying to get this out to continue elevating the conversation, because it's very important we have it right now.
Yeah, you think? I mean, those are not weather balloons. Those are clearly autonomous aircraft of some kind that are, as you put it, swarming U.S. military craft. So
these are
there are 2 options.
Under intelligent control. These are craft under intelligent control, and they're flying with impunity, Tucker, within our airspace, and they can outmaneuver, outperform anything that we seem to have. Their mode of transportation seems magical to us. It's unbelievable, and now finally we're having a rational, sober discussion about this, because we don't know what these are. We don't know the nature of the technology. We need to find out who's operating them and also what the intent is. So it's a really exciting time to be learning about UFOs, because now we're having a complete tipping point with the transparency, and hopefully we'll be getting more answers soon.
This must have scared the crap out of the U.S. military. I mean, their job is to defend the country and themselves, and here these aircraft violate their airspace. Quickly, do you believe that they sincerely don't know what these things are and where they came from?
We have the best military on planet Earth, the greatest intelligence agencies. These are true unknowns, and they were swarming our military arsenals. They're seen over nuclear facilities. This is documented. We need to find out who is operating these vehicles.
Yeah, nicely put. Jeremy Corbell, I appreciate your coming on tonight. I hope we see you again. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.